It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. And of course, we always begin at home, as Nigeria's Defense Minister Muhammad Badaru Abubakar has resigned with immediate effect, citing health reasons in a letter to President Bola Tinubu. The president accepted the resignation and thanked him for his service. Badaru previously served 2 terms as Jigawa State Governor and was appointed Defense Minister in August 2023. President Tinubu is expected to announce a successor to the Senate later this week. The resignation comes as the president has declared a national security emergency and prepares to outline its full scope. There are, however, strong indications that the erstwhile Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, might take over from him. Speculations were rife last night, that Musa, who was relieved of his appointment as CDS by President Bola Tinubu, might replace Badaru after his meeting with the president. Musa was appointed as the 18th Chief of Defense Staff of Nigeria on June 23, 2023. During his tenure, he was widely credited with leading major restructuring and modernization efforts in the military. Well, we're still on security as the federal government has raised the hopes of parents and the authorities of St. Mary's Private Catholic Primary and Secondary School, Papiri in Agwara local government area of Niger State. The National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, has met in Kontagora with the Catholic Bishop of Kontagora Diocese and proprietor of the school, Reverend Bullis Johanna, and parents of the children. He told them that efforts are in top gear to ensure a swift recovery of the abducted students. Ribadu delivered President Bola Tinubu's message of hope and assurance while asking Nigerians to join hands and defeat the common enemies of the country. The principal of the school, Reverend Sister Felicia Gyang, and a representative of the parents, Luka Ilia, narrated how the incident happened, including the ongoing trauma they face. They urged the government to do all it can to secure the safe return of the abducted students.
We remain partner in the pursuit of peace, justice, and national unity. We will continue to preach hope and discourage retaliation, even as we demand justice. We will keep praying for our leaders, our security forces, and for our beloved nation. Thank you once again for honoring us with this visit and for your commitment to resolving this painful situation.
And it's not just now, it has been ongoing for a while. But work is ongoing, work is in progress. We don't need to give details of what has been ongoing, what is happening. But we can assure you, it's a matter of time. This thing will stop. We must stop it, and we're going to stop it. I'm telling you, enough is enough. Like I said, very painful, honestly. Many of us, as you see us, don't even sleep. Many of us are going through the worst moments of our lives. Many of our people are also killed every single day. We bury our best. We bury those who sacrifice their lives for you, for all of us, every single day. And we will continue to do it. We will not relent. We will not stop. We can give you the assurance that we are going to be there.
We remain.
Well, in a separate development, the northern governors and traditional rulers have declared illegal mining a major driver of insecurity, calling on President Tinubu to suspend all mining activities for 6 months and revalidate licenses to break the link between criminal syndicates and terrorism. They also threw their weight behind state police, urging federal lawmakers to fast-track constitutional amendments to decentralize policing. Arise News correspondent Nisi Gabriel reports.
The meeting of the Northern States Governors Forum and the Northern Traditional Council comes amid renewed insurgent activities across the region. Gathering at the Kaduna State Government's house, the leaders are seeking practical ways to implement solutions to the pressing security and development challenges confronting the North. After 10 hours of rigorous deliberations behind closed doors, the forum issued a communique demanding a 6-month suspension of mining activities in the region, citing illegal mining as a driver of insecurity. They also approved a regional security trust fund.
The forum reaffirms its wholehearted support and commitment to the establishment of state police. Accordingly, the forum encourages national and state assembly members in the region to expedite action for its actualization. The forum observes that illegal mining has become a major contributory factor to the security crisis in northern Nigeria. The forum therefore resolved to strongly recommend to the President to direct the Honorable Minister of Solid Minerals to suspend mining exploration for a period of 6 months to allow proper audit and subject all mining licenses to revalidation for a period of 6 months in active consultations with the various state governors, and in the process arrest the menace of artisanal illegal mining.
The forum pledged unconditional support for President Tinubu's renewed offensive to take the fight to insurgents' enclaves after deadly attacks across Kebbi, Kwara, Kogi, Niger, Sokoto, Jigawa, Kano, Borno, and Yobe states.
The forum commends the federal government under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for leaving no stone unturned in ensuring the prompt release of some of the abducted children and in handling other security challenges. We equally commend the sacrifices of our servicemen in uniform who continue to battle various forms of violent insurgencies across the country.
Earlier, the chief host of the event, Governor Obasani, warned against the deliberate politicization of insecurity through fear-mongering and distortion of facts, stressing that it only embodies criminals.
Every governor seated here works tirelessly to secure our communities. We coordinate, compare strategies, share intelligence, and hold one another accountable. We operate an informal but effective peer review mechanism where no idea is too small to be tested and no successful intervention too insignificant to be replicated.
The Sultan of Sokoto urged governors to double their efforts and unite against the region's worsening security challenges.
You know, I always feel bad when I hear that the governors don't want to do anything, the president doesn't want to do anything. No governor, no president will ask for people's votes. And when he takes office, all he does is to turn his back against the people. There are challenges, of course, and we believe by coming together, we'll defeat all those challenges. I want to ask the governors to double their efforts in coming together and speaking with one voice. There's only one North.
It is hoped that the resolutions from this meeting, once implemented, will help in addressing the challenges facing the North. Nisi Gabriel, Arise News, Kaduna. The meeting of the Northern States.
All right, now to oil and gas. As a Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the NUPRC, yesterday kicked off the 2025 oil and gas licensing round, announcing that it is targeting $10 billion in investment tied to the current bid cycle. Addressing journalists in Abuja, Chief Executive Officer of NUPRC, Benga Komolafe, stated that besides the $10 billion investment target, 2 billion barrels of oil and an estimated 400,000 barrels per day of production volume were expected when the blocks become fully operational. Komolafe said the announcement was in line with Section 73 of the Petroleum Industry Act, PIA 2021, which prescribes a fair, transparent and competitive bidding process. Following the approval of President Bola Tinubu, Komolafe stated that of the 50 assets up for bid, 15 were onshore assets, 19 were from shallow water, frontier assets were 15, while the deep water asset was 1. And we round up with politics as Governor Ademola Adeleke of Osun State has resigned from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, effective November 4th, 2025. In a letter to the PDP chairman for Ward 2, Shagba Abogunde, Adeleke cited the ongoing crisis within the party's national leadership as his reason for leaving. He expressed gratitude for the opportunities the PDP provided during his elections as senator representing Osun West and as governor of Osun State. The letter was signed by Governor Adeleke and confirmed by his spokesperson, Malam Olawale Rashid. Now, Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka has challenged students to remain resilient and never discard any form of knowledge, as well as utilize every opportunity at their disposal. Professor Soyinka gave this advice in Ibadan when he paid a visit to his alma mater, that's the Government College Ibadan, from where he graduated in 1950. Arise News correspondent Olu Tayo Famous Cole has more details in this report.
During his visit to the Government College Ibadan, Professor Wole Soyinka was received by the current leadership of his Alumni Association, and he also inspected a guard of honor by the GCI Cadets Parade. The renowned playwright, poet, and activist also visited the newly renovated principal's quarters, the school museum, and other monuments built by the Alumni Association of the GCI. At a meeting with GCI students, Professor Soyinka urged them to develop their own spectrum to life and utilize every available opportunity to attain greatness. He gave some words of wisdom to the budding stars.
Really give some kudos to the old boys, because it was their initiative and they undertook it. They had a project in mind, which is just raising the status, both visual and intellectual, academic of this school. And if your hands were not busy, I would say, give them the solution is not one which is very palatable to many people, but it requires the kind of complacent atmosphere that is left to surround, in which students, pupils are compelled to study. That we've got to break that. That means losing, unfortunately, some of the ease with which we operate, with which we interact. I'm talking about taking security as a personal issue, almost like a discipline itself. That is what is happening in the school, that we reach a point where even security, personal, collective, at work and so on, should really become a subject of study.
Professor Soyinka also listened to literary renditions by the students.
Visiting professors at top global universities include Harvard, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge, and profound humanism. Its academic voice, democracy, and human rights.
President of the Government College Ibadan Alumni Association, Wale Babalaki, eulogized Professor Wole Soyinka for his visit and lauded the Oyo State government for its education policy.
First, we must give thanks to the government of Engineer Seyi Makinde that gave us the opportunity, first as a test run, to see how we could run the school, and later a concession agreement enabling us to run the school. We are extremely grateful for the opportunity. Secondly, what drove us to come in to reposition the school? We believe that by coincidence of life, we had the best education provided by the founders of Government College Ibadan. We had sort of education that was comparable, if not better, than most secondary schools out of the country, including England. And from there, our old boys became very outstanding. And we thought it was time to give back to the society by taking over the school and repositioning it to the level it was when it produced outstanding old boys like Professor Wole Soyinka.
This visit captures the nostalgia and gratitude of an old student returning to his alma mater, highlighting the impact of education and memories that last a lifetime. Olutayo Femonsko, Arise News, Ibadan.
It's always great to see the preservation and celebration of our education and encouraging the young students to continue to remain focused. Adefemi, Dr. Abati, several stories today, huge focus on security or insecurity, if I may call it that, of course, with the major bombshell that was dropped yesterday, which is the resignation of the Minister of Defence.
Definitely. You know, when we're looking at his resignation, perhaps it wouldn't have come as a huge surprise to many, being that there were some instances where we would have expected to see him and we didn't. So perhaps that could have been the first indication that perhaps there was some sort of a shuffle or some sort of departure coming soon. He cited ill health, it's believed, for his reason for his departure. And, you know, we can only extend our well wishes to him and hoping that he does make a speedy recovery. But I do think beneath the surface of that is perhaps an admission that perhaps this may be a challenge too great for his own level of expertise. So then the conversation shifts now to who will replace him. I know that there have been some, as you read there, rumblings, some rumours of who may replace him. But I do think that at a time like this, what Nigeria does need is someone who can take the helm of this defense ministry and really do the needful, which is secure the lands and properties. And people have to also extend a little bit of patience, I think, to see that whoever replaces him will be given the space and time, of course not a lot of it, to really trigger the change that we need to see. Because clearly with the departure of the minister, there is a belief at the very least that there are some areas where he may have fallen short. So then again, everyone's interest is going to be on who replaces him and what the expectations of that person is going to be. What metrics of success are we going to have for that new person? And again, when we're looking at these ongoing security crises, especially in Niger State, for example, being that the abductees are still at large, still away from their homes, that you can imagine will be the priority for whomever is coming in to really sort out what's happening. And then there's also going to be institutional changes, you'd imagine, or at least some sort of development, because if we're hearing reports of, some accusations of collusion between security apparatus and bandits, that when they are pulled away from an area, minutes later, an attack can successfully be executed. That is also something that's going to fall under the purview of the new defense minister. So whomever that may be, they do need to really hit the ground running, because this is a situation, unfortunately, which is gravitating and becoming bigger right before our very eyes. So that's definitely going to be a cause for concern for many people. And whomever the new minister will be, we hope that they are definitely going to be tasked and be able to do the needful, because when we're talking so much about appointments and the president's judgment at this point, especially when we're looking at ambassadors, there's been so much conversation about perhaps this person shouldn't have been chosen. And I hope that whoever does become the next defense minister will be someone that everyone can fall behind, and hopefully they'll be the person to institute the real type of security we need. Moving on, still under the umbrella of security, we've seen this fiercely anticipated Northern Governors Forum, and we see that, much like we saw in the South, that they've also incorporated the presence of traditional rulers. And I think that that's something that should be commended, because when you're looking at the fragmented parts of our society, absolutely governors play a huge role, but then so too do, state leaders like traditional rulers, because they also have a very close-knit relationship with their kinspeople, with their kingdom's people. And you can imagine that that is something that can foster and facilitate some level of change. I mean, leading up to this, last week when we were looking ahead to this Northern Governors Forum, there was conversation about whether or not the ACF would be participating. It doesn't look as though that happened yesterday. We already knew that, being that that's what the guest told us last week. But perhaps that would have been perhaps an area for a bit more inclusion, so that we can see more areas of the North really covered at every base. When we're looking at the lines coming out of it, I don't think, again, it's anything that fosters a lot of surprise. Yes, we did hear that there is calls for more state policing, which is something, again, when we're looking at the south of Nigeria, this is also something that many governors have been clamoring for. They want to have the opportunity to really take the police apparatus within their states under their own control and purview. That also unveils a lot of questions about whether or not that could be politicized or abused. But I think at this point in our security challenge, perhaps state policing is something that Nigeria needs sooner rather than later.
Okay, let me take the issues one by one, as quickly as I can. First, the Minister of Defense, Badaru, former governor of Zamfara State, has resigned on health grounds, we are told. And we can only believe what we have been told. Some people will say, oh, it must be a cover story. Maybe the president sacked him or whatever. But that would be speculative. The true story, or whatever it is that we are all human beings. We can all fall ill. And if the minister on his own has now said, well, he doesn't think his energy can carry him, he's resigning on health grounds, I think it's important for the public to respect that and to wish him well and to commend him for whatever, he's been able to contribute to the challenge of ensuring proper defense of Nigeria in his capacity as minister. Well, the other thing again is about his succession. The story, when you were reading it, there was some speculation again that General Christopher Gabwen Musa, former Chief of Defense Staff, is likely to be his successor. And I think this speculation arises from the fact that, General Musa was reported as having met with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So people just say, oh, he must be the replacement. However, my point is this, that if that is the way that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is thinking, I will say that he's thinking in the right direction. Because as Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa was a man who discharged himself honorably. He was a straight-talking, honest man of action who led the defense team, the Nigerian military, with a lot of confidence. If President Bola Ahmed Tinubu considers him worthy of recall to service, he still has the energy, he still has the fire, he still has the competence to provide direction. But nobody should, speculate that, oh, maybe former governor of Zamfara State, Badaru, was kicked or was asked to jump. We should not joke with health issues. We can only wish him and his family well and thank him for the efforts that he has made so far. Now, attached to that story was the visit to the St. Mary's Private Catholic Primary and Secondary School in Kontagora, Niger State, by the NSA, the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu. I think that, again, is remarkable because it shows government's consistent empathy, with the plight of those families involved, over 200, 300 of them, whose children were abducted, and then only about 50 have returned, or they've escaped, or they've been rescued, whatever the truth is in between that scope. But the National Security Advisor then going there personally and reassuring the Catholic Bishop of Kontagora, the proprietor of the school, Reverend Bulos Yohana, and then the families, the parents, of the abducted children. I think in terms of optics, it's a very good development that we should not dismiss with a wave of hand. Now, as for mining, northern governors say, oh, the Ministry of Solid Minerals and the federal government should suspend all mining licenses to prevent collusion between the people who are using mining in the northern part of the country to cause mayhem. Now, the truth of the matter is that the Ministry of Solid Minerals, led by Mr. Dele Alake, Henry Dele Alake, that's his name, in September, decided to suspend a total of about 1,263 mining licenses, either quarry or, mining or, some other attached mining activities under the federal cadastral system, as they call it. Now, the same Mr. Alake has had cause to say, because of this, people have been giving him death threats. So the Ministry of Solid Minerals finds itself in a very terrible terrain because people go into mining in Nigeria, either illegally, colluding with some powerful forces, and then the government comes along and says, no, you cannot do this. A Minister of Solid Minerals comes along and says, if you don't pay your annual license fees, then we would shut you down. And I think that the governors, even asking for a permanent suspension or an additional suspension, may not be aware of the efforts already made by the Federal Ministry of Solid Minerals. The major point to be made here is that the Ministry of Solid Minerals and the Minister, Henry Alake, should not be intimidated, should stand resolute, and that ministry should receive the support of the President of Nigeria to say that illegal mining is not allowed, impunity in the mining sector is not allowed. A country that is looking for revenue must insist on these basic issues about everybody respecting the rules. Which takes me very quickly to Gbenga Komolafe's NUPRC, now announcing a new round of licensing, 50 blocks, and also saying that, look, if this new round of licensing goes well, there will be about 10 billion worth of investment coming to the Nigerian government. Well, it's cherry news to the air. In 2022, the NUPRC had what they call a mini bid round. And then in 2024, they had a licensing round that succeeded, and that was commended. However, the point made by the head of the NUPRC, Engineer Gbenga Komolafe, about transparency and accountability, I think is what we should stress. The NUPRC itself, realizing that, should place the right emphasis on that. One, that the process is not used to favor anybody or any political interest as we are getting closer to 2027, and that the success that Engineer Komolafe talks about in the 2024 round is also again replicated in this latest proposal. It will be at two levels. There's a first stage, which is the application stage. There's then the bid stage. Whether it's the application stage or the bid stage, we insist on the same values that Engineer Komolafe himself has promised us, which is transparency and accountability. And if there are any gray areas, it's early days enough for them to realize that. Osun State and Governor Ademola Adeleke. Governor Ademola Adeleke was senator on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. He became governor on the platform of the People's Democratic Party. In his capacity as governor, he has brought what they call imole, which means light, to governance in Osun State. And he has been very well celebrated for his folksy style, for his populist style, and for his commitment to the plight of the people of Osun State. However, now he says he's leaving his ward 2 in, what's this again? In his ward, anyway, in Ede North local government area. He resigned from the party, more or less, on November 4, or he said he will not be standing on the platform of the PDP. It's a survivor thing, which makes sense to me. The PDP is in crisis. You don't even know which faction of the PDP is acceptable to the INEC, the Electoral Commission. So if he stays in the PDP, and then tomorrow he takes part in the primaries, and then they come back and say, no, PDP is in a confused state, then they will say PDP has no candidate. So I think what Governor Adeleke is trying to do is to look for a safe haven in, well, some people say Accord Party. So if he goes to Accord Party, he will be able to contest on a platform that is real. Now, can he go to APC? That will look untidy. If he goes to APC, the same APC that has been holding on to the salaries of local government chairmen, local government councils in Osun State since February. So that doesn't look like the proper direction for him. Okay, is it possible for him to say that PDP should not feature a candidate? That too will be very difficult because it will put him in utter collision with, the leadership of the People's Democratic Party. And yet Osun State is generally an umbrella state. So it's a very tough situation for him, but I think, every politician works out how to survive. So if he goes to Accord Party, he will also need to build up Accord Party. He will need to do a lot in terms of voter education. By the way, the primaries of the PDP in Osun State is taking place today. So who are they going to put there? Will they put a placeholder? They'll probably decide on a placeholder, and you have a governor, PDP, who doesn't want to take risk. That's what I think.
Absolutely. I think it's not yet Uhuru for Governor Adeleke, who still needs to play out whatever his political strategy will be. But this is what we expect to see more of as the PDP's crisis continues to hang in the balance. Because ultimately, as we've always reiterated on this table, once there are contentions about offices such as National Secretary, Chairman, and who is recognized by INEC, that jeopardizes all potential candidates for the party in any election whatsoever. I'd like to focus a little bit on insecurity this morning and the connection between insecurity and mining as brought to the front burner by the Northern Governors Forum. Of course, prior to that, yesterday we saw the resignation of the Minister of Defense. That has been unpacked in great detail already. But when we make the connection and the speculation around a General Christopher Musa possibly coming into that area, I think it creates a lot of excitement for people, because this is an individual who, during his tenure as CDS, had a number of interesting proposals, but were proposals that he possibly couldn't fulfill in that role. If he's in an administrative role, then he's potentially able to start making headway on issues such as fencing the border, which he has reiterated several times that this might be a big resolution to some of many issues. Well, people are arguing and saying that, well, not all of the criminals we're dealing with are coming from across the border. Well, that may be true. One thing we know for sure does come in through the border are arms and weapons. So if we're able to make some headway with regards to getting some sort of closure around our porous borders, I think that would take us a step in the right direction. He's also somebody who had advocated for the use of technology. He said we don't need that much manpower. We need to make use of drones, CCTV cameras, and so forth. And so it would be an interesting development to see him at the helm of affairs, where he can actually make the necessary administrative difference. Inputs that can create a difference. Now to mining. Now what we do know is that the report by Vanguard earlier this year says that 60% of bandit camps are actually situated near gold mines. We know that the mining industry, the illegal mining industry specifically, is a huge driver of the insecurity we see not just in Nigeria but in the entire region. But when the Northern Governors ask for a 6-month suspension, it's a little bit confusing, because what is going to change within that 6 months? What are we trying to see a difference in? They are saying that, we want to see some regulation, some licensing, it's a period to sanitize and so forth. But in my opinion, it almost looks like some sort of an amnesty. And we need to be careful. Is it that we're looking for amnesty for the crimes that are being perpetuated, especially those that are now being fueled and funded by the proceeds of illegal mining along other activities? Or is it that we want to deal with this problem in a sustainable way? Now, the Ministry of Solid Minerals introduced the Mining Marshals Corps, which now has a force of over 2,600 boots on the ground. They've shut down almost 400 illegal mines since they were created in 2024. Shouldn't we be looking for ways to empower these existing institutions? Because this creates sustainability in ensuring that once this moratorium that is being advocated for comes to an end, What happens? Because these people will surely come back, because we wouldn't have made any institutional or structural or systemic changes in the meantime. Now, I also go on to say that whilst there was a focus on mining, there was a focus on state police, and there was the creation of a joint security fund, or a commitment to create it. What about cattle rustling? I thought that's something that would have been dealt with within the Northern Governors meeting. What about motorcycle restriction? These are things that we all know are associated with the upsurge in the crime that we're seeing at the moment. So we know, even in 2024, the current Minister of Solid Minerals had said that these mining activities are connected to very powerful and influential people, and that this is all tied to banditry, and that there are people in power who have influence in all of this. This is very common knowledge. So when we see this focus on the mining sector, and we leave out issues such as cattle rustling, open grazing, motorcycle use, restriction of it, how we can begin to monitor the borders between states, and of course the borders with our neighbors, then we begin to ask ourselves, what was really the agenda of this meeting? Because a 6-month suspension on mining seems like an amnesty to me. Well,